If I had to sum it all up, it would go something kind of like this. In a world where we're constantly being told what to do, we stopped for just long enough to ask, who am I supposed to be?
My life before Narrowgate was bleak. I was messed up. I started to suffer severely with depression and had an escalating series of suicide attempts. And that's when I heard about Narrowgate. One last chance to find a reason not to pull the trigger. I was able to reach a point where I believed that God loved me too. And that I wasn't an accident, I wasn't a mistake, I wasn't too messed up, and I had value.
Whenever we experience the truth, we can't help but change. And Narrowgate provided a place, an outlet, an avenue for that to happen in me.
And when I was at my bottom of my life, he just said, let's go home. It's something that changed my life and in repercussion has changed the lives of others. To imagine where I'd be at now if I didn't go through Narrowgate is, I don't know where I would be at.
My name is Bradlee Brandvik, and I graduated from Narrowgate in 2021. There are a lot of guys that went through Narrowgate with me that didn't have a great home life or anything like that, and I'd be lying if I said that that was my story. I actually come from a great Christian home. Phenomenal parents who put their faith first and put that on display with how to honor God through their marriage. And growing up in high school, I was a stud at football. I put my identity in that leading up to college, actually. And it was at college that I found myself struggling with who I was, because within the first weeks of me being there, football was ripped away from me as an opportunity. I suffered a season-ending injury going into my freshman year, and 9 months later, I re-tore my shoulder and got told I would never be able to play again. I began to question why I was even here. And then a few months later, I lost my best friend. And so that started the downfall of Bradlee Brandvik. And there's two paths that we get to walk on. We either get to walk in the Spirit and walk in the flesh. And I wasn't just walking in the flesh, I was actively running in it. I struggled with women, drugs, alcohol, you name it, and odds are I was struggling with it. And I just began to spiral into a downward hole, where it wasn't until a year later that I realized that the goodness of God is not out of reach, and I'm not unredeemable. So August 30th of 2020, I came clean to my parents about the life that I had been living. And it was actually through my dear friend and previous student pastor, Nate Malugin. My dad reached out to him, and he talked to Jason Kraft, and he mentioned, hey, my son struggled with a lot of the stuff that Bradlee struggled with, and I think that there's this place that would really work for him. And so I spent the next 2 weeks harassing the interviewing team and the onboard team at Narrowgate, trying my best to plead with them to come to the September class, because I never thought that I could get clean, that I could get the help I needed on my own beforehand. So while I was at Narrowgate, it's just an amazing opportunity to spend 8 months chasing after two questions. And so starting in foundation, as we're working through John, I'll never forget John chapter 8, when Jesus stands up and proclaims that he is the living water, he is the way, the truth, and the life. No one gets to the Father except through him. And Daniel Bell was leading us in this study. And as he's leading us in this, he leads us with this question, that Jesus is either a liar, a lunatic, or he's Lord. And when he said that, something in me just leaped and said, he's Lord. That is the only option for him to be. And so I just decided with everything in me that I was going to be obedient unto him, that I was going to be not just a Christian, but a disciple of Christ. And so I spent the next 7 months chasing after not who I was, but who God calls me. And I realized that I'm not just Bradlee Brandvik. I am a son of the Most High King who is invaluable to him, whose life was so valuable that he sent his one and only son to die for. And who am I to squander that? And so I just began to walk in an identity that wasn't my own. It's ultimately not my will that's done, but God's will through me. Going through service, I had the opportunity to go and preach at Grace Chapel for their junior high camp. While I was out there, I got to meet Emma, who was an intern at Grace Chapel at the time. I actually had the opportunity to meet my wife in Narrowgate, and in January of 2021, I proposed to her. And so got to go out, go through Narrowgate, meet the love of my life in Tennessee, and ultimately land back to us having a beautiful son and moving back to Texas to raise him and doing my dream job. I'm the student pastor at the River Panhandle in Panhandle, Texas, my hometown, doing my dream job, getting the opportunity to walk students into a relationship with Jesus, and not just preparing them for life, but helping them understand that there are hardships that come and what to do when those hardship comes, and ultimately provide a place for them, for anyone that I encounter, to understand that we're never too far removed from God, and there always is an opportunity to plug back into a family that loves them. Because of the disciple making and the investment that happened at Narrowgate in my spiritual life, I'm able to take what I learned and give it out to others, not just hold it within, but share the light that shines so bright within me and share the joy that Jesus gave me with so many others in my life. I can't imagine where I would be if it hadn't been for Narrowgate. For Narrowgate providing the opportunity for me to have one-on-one conversations with a God that is real, with a God that really loves me, and ultimately a God that changed the trajectory of my life. I can't thank those enough that play a part in that, but ultimately, I can't even begin to understand where my life would be if it hadn't been for the opportunities and for the place that is Narrowgate.